Taylor Jennings.
Hey Taylor, this is Blake Ensign calling, and we are connected professionally on LinkedIn. I was reading your profile and wondered if you had a minute to talk to me about what you said out there.
Yeah, actually.
What moved me was some of the things you had written in your profile, and I was sort of interested in talking a little bit about that, if you don't mind, in sort of a podcast-like way. But openly, I'd like to really get to understand what you're doing here in Indianapolis, because that is something I found a little intriguing, that you are creating some sort of a workspace for collaboration or something to that effect. Is that right?
Yeah, no, actually, Blake, you're catching me at the time when we're installing the furniture at the space. The idea came about back in probably 2012, 2013. I was in the commercial furniture industry and doing sales and some space planning, and had gone by the Speakeasy, which is a co-working space in Broad Ripple in Indianapolis.
Sure.
And just immediately it clicked with the combination between what I was doing with the commercial furniture and the actual space itself. So however many years, 6 years later, we finally were able to step away from a previous employer and start up our own commercial furniture dealership in January of 2017. And after a successful year of business, we were able to create our first showroom, which is we were working on my garage prior, and the showroom, we decided to implement that concept where we convert the showroom into an actual co-working space, turn our overhead into revenue-generating space instead.
That's a brilliant concept that many people would love to do if they had the funding, but it sounds like that your professional success in your own company has allowed you to reach out to create opportunities for other people to interconnect within a beautiful space, and also to provide yourself a way to kind of fund the showroom so that you can have a change of furniture maybe on a regular basis, or something to that effect, where people would come in and see the new designs or new size things that you're doing. I'm not really sure. What's the plan there?
Yeah. So no, you're pretty spot on. Having the ability to be agile in the space planning is definitely beneficial. Understanding how the actual space works and the utilization of the seating, meeting rooms, private office areas, things of that sort, allows us to be able to adjust the furniture layout as necessary to test things, right? One of the benefits to being a commercial furniture dealership is the partnership we have with manufacturers. So if a manufacturer, they're always wanting to show new product in their people's showrooms, we're able to bring that product in and be able to showcase it, and typically at a showroom discount, which is deeper than what we usually get as a standard discount in selling furniture to whoever is out there. That benefit, now gives us the opportunity to be able to buy furniture that is significantly nicer than your average co-working space, and be able to have, I wouldn't say close to the same cost. People going out and buying plastic chairs to sit in co-working spaces is not going to be quite the ergonomic chair that we have here. It's $300, $400. So, but to your point, yeah, it allows us to be able to swap stuff out and people to be able to see new product.
Well, that sounds really fascinating. Did you actually upgrade the Speakeasy? Because for a long time it really had horrible furniture, very uncomfortable, and then all of a sudden it seemed to get some more comfortable things when I was there for one particular philosophy sort of class. But when I went for a tech class, it was really hard to be comfortable. But did you kind of upgrade that, or did you just take the idea of creating a co-working space from that idea there in Broad Ripple?
It's interesting that you're bringing that up, because we had actually donated all of that furniture to the Speakeasy. After seeing what was happening, or understanding the connection, I really wanted to assist with kind of bolstering the tech community and providing them with a better place to work. And at the time, the Speakeasy furniture was really crappy. And so I said, hey, let's work together. Let me see what I can do. And we were able to provide that furniture through the Han company and outfit the space. And the intention was, to be able to develop some business out of it. And I think a lot of furniture dealerships, are sold on that concept, is that there's startups and other companies that are in there that then graduate out of the space. Well, the big difference between giving somebody furniture and that's in a totally different industry and then relying on them to do referrals is that there's not much incentive, right? It's like paying somebody a bunch of money to 100% deposit on doing construction work or something. For whatever reason, there's just not the motivation to be able to bring that business back. So that was unsuccessful in being able to develop new business, and that's where the connection comes in now, is that we have a real motivation to actually push furniture through the space, and we're familiar with the people in the space. We have relationships with those people, and so the idea is to be able to create a lasting relationship with the community that's within OutHouse, and as they grow, we grow with them. We're able to provide them a solution, and capture that area of the market, because a lot of the co-working spaces, as soon as somebody leaves and it goes into their own space, they lose out on that client, right? We do not. We're able to provide them with furniture, and also through the memberships, we give 10% back towards the credit in order to purchase furniture. So there's incentive to have that relationship as well.
Well, that's
again, to your original point, Speakeasy, needed some furniture, and we upgraded them.
Well, that sounds really good in terms of having an opportunity to connect with up-and-coming companies, and I'm sure you're aware of some of the other developments going on somewhat in the Hamilton County area with regard to tech companies and startups and those sort of things. The OutHouse is such an interesting sort of name. How did that come about?
I got to give credit where credit's due. It's my wife's
it's a crap
name. She came up with. I came up with a slogan though. So the original name was supposed to be Collabro, which is a name that I thought was neat, but it just didn't feel right.
Sounds like a game.
What's that?
It sounded like a game to me, like Hasbro.
Right, like Hasbro, and I thought it actually had a little bit of a Hispanic sound to it, and it's funny because I ended up coming across another co-working space called Collabra.
Okay. So that wasn't going to work for you. So how did your wife get involved?
Yeah, so I ended up sitting down with my wife, and I explained to her, I was like, we really I need to figure out the name for this thing. So I explained to her the pains that I was having being a remote worker for, the last 3 years, and about how, it's difficult to get business done at home because you have all of these interruptions, whether or not you have kids, or, you just think to yourself, oh, I need to do this chore, or I need to clean this up, or whatever that may be, especially when you're not changing into professional gear. You just, doing the business at home is just, it's difficult. And so I told her, I said, in addition, if you're working 3 days from home in a week, and those days are consecutive days, you often find yourself looking homeless. And at the end of those 3 days where you're unshaven, and, you forget whether or not you may have taken a shower the day before or whatever else. And so sometimes you just need to get out of the house. And so in addition, the biggest one was the fact you can never detach, right? You bring your business home, you can't detach from work. It's always there. So that's another reason to do your business out of the house. You shouldn't be doing it there. She says, well, what about the name OutHouse? At which point I laughed, and then immediately came back with, don't do your business at home. So
well, practically there are many companies that,
like a branding, it was a branding light bulb, which was great. So
sure, and there are some small companies that do provide themselves a classroom space in the basement or in the other parts of their home if they're large enough. And I sort of had something like that in the Arts and Design District of Carmel, where I had private control over who came in and who didn't with regard to my marketing practice and my language school, and it worked for me. But I can see how when you're a professional who's wearing a suit all day long, that you might like to be able to go out, but be able to sit in a place that doesn't require you to purchase something to eat in order to use their Wi-Fi or whatnot. So I can see how what you're trying to produce is very good for the community. It's been very difficult when I was on the go to have to go into a place, be forced to eat something, or feel obligated to buy something every single time I simply wanted to check an email. So practically, I think that what you've got going there is very good. How are you planning on getting other people involved in seeing the space, or have you already built enough memberships now that everything is paid for?
Yeah, so we're already profitable. We have 45 people that are signed up prior to even opening, just through a not really soft opening. It's just an online website stage. We needed about 30 to break even, and so things are going very well in that manner. I think people, to your point, Blake, people understand that environment is what matters most. When you're working from home, it's a lot of times more difficult to get started. Maybe if you're doing it on a single day, but not multiple days in a row. And there's a saying that environment trumps willpower, right? So having a good place that you can go to, that you at least have to put on a decent set of clothes, or I always wear jeans, is very useful. So a lot of people are connecting with that. We've had a lot of publications go out as well. Indy Star, The Current, The Times, IBJ. And so having reporters that are engaged with small business like us has been instrumental in being able to build brand awareness. Co-working spaces through the Global Co-working Survey, which was I think it picked up maybe like 2,000 people that they actually surveyed at co-working spaces. The majority of conversions from walk-ins to members occurs when you host events. So the primary focus will be to host events here to be able to increase the membership base, and that's something that we'll leave open to the public to do without paying, probably for the next month or two until we get to a point membership sign-ups where we're comfortable with making people start paying.
Well, that's really good, and I'm sure people will appreciate having a monthly investment that they can count on for paying for their service and whatever it is you're providing now. In the space, what does the opportunity allow for people to do? Does it allow them to have private meetings in smaller chamber-like meeting rooms, or is it only a collaborative space for people to, pull up next to one another and simply sit down and work and maybe talk on occasion? What's the silence factor there in terms of some people do need, to be able to make phone calls? How is it that you've structured their space in order to make sure that every person is, able to kind of accomplish what they're there to do? Because the launch was something sort of like that, but then it was sort of like you couldn't talk to anybody, you couldn't network and stuff like that. So what's practically what's going on?
Library. It's like being in the library for so long caused them to treat their co-working space like a library when they moved out. That is not the case here.
Sure.
One of the passions I've had about creating this space is in order to set it up in a way that's done right. This is a furniture showroom. It's also an office. So when you come in, people are going to be on their phone. People are going to be talking. But we have and supposed to be making connections and talking in a regular voice. Our space has sound masking, which is through a speaker system that's hanging down from the ceiling, where it provides pink noise, which covers the white noise, but then also the other side, which covers up voices in a fashion where it just kind of seems like an HVAC system being on that'll always be running. It works very well. We also have acoustical panels that are set up in here. Meeting rooms, there's 4 meeting rooms, 3 of which you can reserve online or in person through 5-inch tablets that are attached to the wall. The 4th meeting room is actually where I'm seated right now. It's a first come, first serve, so if it's ever available, you can sit down and be able to work. Conferencing, each one of the rooms, I think one of them is like probably an 8 to 12 person space. The other 2 are 6 people. One of them is kind of like a small training room, but it's all set up to be able to hit on pretty much each type of meeting that you would need to have. Every meeting room has a 65-inch TV and marker boards in it. Our front room we're actually going to be partnered with the Noblesville High School, Don Wettrick, who leads an innovation class there. And we'll be converting our one meeting room into a podcasting room, which will allow us to be able to showcase different members, different businesses that are in the space. We have insightful conversation, things of that sort. So utilization of the space will be very good. In the back room, there's 7 cubby-like stations, 65-inch panels on either side of the person seated there. They're 48 inches deep, 24-inch deep work surfaces that are all adjustable height. And so when you need to get stuff done, we're going to call it the pit. You go into the pit and then are able to sit down and focus on working. You don't have distractions around you. People can still be on their phones. Each one of those desks will also have a 24-inch gaming monitor, which they can plug in through HDMI and be able to have that extra monitor to work as well. That's one of the things that we see as being important is for people to have a secondary monitor to work from. So.
Well, podcasting is certainly something I know something about after talking with Stephen Whittle, who's an international man, and I created some podcasts with Bob Berg, who's a sales guru internationally. But openly, what I'm really curious about is how large is the space there, because if you're really looking at having a lot of people in, how many do you expect to be serving on a daily basis?
Yeah, so, our occupancy level is actually 35. I'd be comfortable with having 30 to 40 people in here seated on a regular basis. That, for any co-working space, observation is key in order to determine how many memberships you'd be able to allow within the space. That's just something that we're going to have to do. But ideally, I would say probably around 30 people. And that would be maybe utilizing the conference rooms and other space, but we have at least 30 chairs available in the open work area for people to be able to work from.
Now let's get to brass tacks. You're really marketing office furniture. Is office furniture the only type of products that you officially carry, or do you really provide kind of the high-end furniture at reasonable prices for anyone who's looking for some unique piece for their home that's away from their office? What's the story on that?
Sure. So it's commercial furniture. We do some hospitality stuff as well. Our primary focus has been healthcare, but I think it might move more into the education side. School systems are wanting to be able to create collaborative environments, and we're working with the city of Lebanon on this is a pre-bid meeting where they're creating a co-working and maker space. That's about 12,000 square feet out there, and so our intention is we have a really strong relationship with Dremel Bosch, and is to be able to hopefully partner with them, and as a turnkey package is to be able to offer school systems a space and environment, creating an environment and also equipment, and being able to sell Bosch Dremel to create a maker space that really aligns with the feeling that you come in and experience when you go into an outhouse. Lighting is going to be another goal to be able to sell as well. We are not a vendor currently of that, but it's something we'd like to be able to provide, as well as acoustical paneling. We have that ability to be able to sell that stuff. We'll see what else. I don't really see a whole lot else. Smart switches, we have smart dimmers and products of that sort to be able to set up as well through a company called Jasco. And let's see, outside of that, technology products. For instance, with the 5-inch room schedulers that you're able to put on the exterior of a conference room and be able to schedule meetings through Outlook or through the tablet directly. So there's a myriad of products that we're able to provide to people that'll be available.
Well, that sounds really wonderful, and it sounds like you've really spent a lot of time putting in your mind what is appropriate to share with people about the space in terms of marketing. Do you have a marketing firm that you're regularly working with that's helped you to produce some of these events and some of this exposure that you've gathered, or is your wife the one who's really the mind for that? As you mentioned, she helped you to solve a problem there, or what's the story on that?
Dave Ramsey, in one of his books, actually it might have been Brian Tracy, it's probably one of the two, mentioned that every great decision that they came up with, they always passed by their wife, and who had influenced that decision, right? I plan on engaging her in a lot of this, but I have not for the most part outside of the name at this point. The marketing, people need to reach out to resources like Indie Star or local papers and publications that are looking for great stories, right? I think the majority of marketing there is just picking up the phone and calling somebody, or even talking with the city. Aaron Head and Judy Johnson here at the Noblesville Planning and Development, they're instrumental for us in being able to be in contact with these different outlets, which has just been super helpful in getting the word out. But ours has snowballed a bit. I think in a big way due to the name and the branding. But we've done all of our own stuff outside of that. With LinkedIn has been some influence. I've made a lot of contacts through LinkedIn. Instagram, as things are coming along, but I've actually held back tremendously on posting stuff on LinkedIn and Facebook just because I didn't want my wife to see what the place looks like until it's done. So she's she's the only one that I care to really impress with the design in here. And I designed everything from the walls to the fixtures and finishes. So
Sure.
we'll see how that works out.
Well, it's spoken like a true Christian man, only wanting to honor his wife with a surprise. So I think that's really good. And your profile certainly speaks to that effect, that you are moved by certain proverbs and other things, and the Strength Finder 2.0 principles that are out there. And certainly Brian Tracy is a man of all seasons and has been around for a long time in terms of a sales professional coach and guru. So he's someone that you are inspired by. We are sort of in the same realm on that. Now, professionally, have you had other media outlets doing interviews with you online that I might take a look at to gather some more details about what you're doing? Is there a video interview out there somewhere?
There is not. No. You're the first actual little phone interview that I've had outside of newspaper outlets.
Okay. Well, that is something that is practically very important for most people today, to make sure that the person that they're speaking with on the telephone is exactly who the person is in the actual business practice. So you might like to look into doing some more marketing-wise with some videos in terms of exposing the space to the world and providing yourself some marketing materials on your website. I've not visited it yet, but I'm sure it's up to snuff with the current standards. But openly, I'd like to just take the time to thank you for this moment in time in life. We only have a few moments of time to really help others and to provide them with insight into where things might go over the long term of relationship. And you certainly have shown how much you are really interested in making the community a better place for lots of types of businesses. You mentioned small business, you mentioned classrooms, you mentioned practically hospitals. Sounds like your practice has really got a large client base of opportunity there, and that's why you had such success in 1 year's time. So I applaud openly what you've been able to accomplish with whatever small team of people that you have representing your firm. How many people are in your firm right now?
Yeah, so right now we have 4 full-time people, 5 full-time people if you include myself, and then a designer. The intention behind the space, Blake, you mentioned a handful of people that we're looking to be able to help out and influence with how they work, or educationally, or all that. Our primary focus is one I really didn't even focus on in this conversation. That's to be able to provide people who work remotely the opportunity to increase the time that they have with their families, increase the time that they're able to work, and decrease that constant stress that they have from driving into work every single day. People that work remotely, if they have to drive an hour to work one way, that takes up a significant amount of time out of their life. So our goal is to be able to work with corporations downtown by opening up one of these spaces in every county around Indianapolis, hopefully by 2020, and then be able to allow corporations to say, hey, look, we're going to give you the opportunity to be able to expense an OutHouse account. We're going to save you 2 hours every day driving, 2 or 3 times a week, which over a span of a year is over 200 hours. 200 hours that you're able to spend more now with your family, and be able to, again, get out of the house and be able to detach and increase that life. There's been a lot of sacrifices any other entrepreneur or business owner knows, and in family life and with your marriage, when you're dedicated towards a passion or a cause to be able to create something. And that's the true passion that I have, is to be able to figure out ways to improve that for other people as well as myself.
I think it's important that you really work on that angle with the corporations as you go forward. That was a brilliant thought that you had in terms of your community service on the large scale of what you're doing there.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple of big points. There's, the way I see it is we just opened up a box of puzzle pieces, and we see how all of them fit together for this problem that's now. The problem is remote working, and how do we manage that to some degree? And so a lot of corporations, letting people work remotely, it typically just means working from home. Well, when people come in through the front door of an outhouse, they're automatically clocked in. And when they walk out, they're clocked out. There'll be a dongle that they're able to carry around that allows us to be able to create a report based on that information and submit that to corporations that these other people work for. So you see that people are able to come into a work environment, a professional work environment, and be able to, not really keep track, but at least ensuring that people aren't working from their PJs at home, waking up at 11 o'clock in the morning to start work. I think that's a major factor. provide corporations with almost like a satellite office.
I think what you've said is absolutely brilliant, because in reality, people do want to have the ability to track their time without having to worry about it in the middle of their task. So the fact that when they walk in with a passcode, it logs them in, that is absolutely brilliant. And I think that's really wonderful what you're doing to help people to manage their time, but also corporations to be able to monitor who's where and what they're doing. And at the most point, it gives the individual who is a worker in a company who is working remotely some privacy to their home space, so that they're not being voyeured in on with regard to the technology capabilities that we have today. We're sort of running out of time because I'm sure you have a lot to do, but you've provided me great fodder for a podcast, and I hope that it's all right, but I'm going to share it with people because I think what you're doing is impressive, and that the fact that you'll be lined up in some way with some international people who are out loud and proud with their sales businesses, I think might also help you a bit. So I just want again to thank you again for your time, Taylor, and to really just say thanks so much for taking this moment in time to impact my life in this interview. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Blake, and thank you for the call. Talk to you soon then.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.